Hi everyone, we're going to get started in a few minutes as soon as we get more people in the stream. Okay, I'm just going to get started in one more minute. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for joining us today at this webinar. We will be going over stop motion animation and audio for teaching technology to special needs youth. I want to start off by talking about Tech Kids Unlimited in general, who we are and what we do. After I go over the curriculum that we use with audio and animation, we'll have time for questions. So please sign in to YouTube, and you can using your Gmail account, and you can join the chat to ask questions towards the end of the webinar. Okay, so for those who don't know what Tech Kids Unlimited is, it is a non-for-profit technology-based educational organization for kids ages 7 to 19 with special needs. Our work-based learning program empowers and inspires the next generation of digital natives to learn, create, develop, and share the tools of technology in a supporting and nurturing environment. At Tech Kids Unlimited, we see about 250 students in a year, and we have a partnership with NYU Engineering, where we have workshops for students. We also have parents and teacher training, and really our goal is to reach as many special needs students as we can and teach them something that we love so that they can become the techies of tomorrow. I'm just going to introduce myself as well. My name is Christina Eulario. I'm the program manager of Tech Kids Unlimited. Also in the chat is Beth Rosenberg. As you can see, she typed in the chat. She is the founder director of the program. And she will also be able to answer any questions throughout the webinar if you have, and I will also be answering questions. I want to just talk a little bit about our model at Tech Kids Unlimited and our philosophy. So we see, like I said, 250 students a year, and we break up our classes by age. So we have 7 to 13-year-olds in a class, and then we have 14 to 19-year-olds in a class. We have week-long workshops. We have workshops on holidays and after school. Sometimes we go into special needs schools and we'll teach there. So we really just, like I said, want to reach as many kids as we possibly can, which is why we've decided to do this webinar in professional development, because we really want teachers to kind of understand our philosophy a little bit more and try to bring that into their own classrooms. So this webinar was made possible because of a partnership with Wagner College in Staten Island. Together we applied for funding through the Hive Digital Media Fund, and they were able to provide us with the funding for this, which is great because Staten Island is another area of New York City that doesn't have as many resources. So we were very happy to be able to go in person to Wagner College and have in-person sessions there. And now this webinar will also be having a class for kids ages 7 to 13, and then again for 14 to 19-year-olds this Sunday. So if there's any teachers or paraprofessionals or any parents that are watching right now, you can feel free to spread the word and go to our website at techkidsunlimited.org/register for the full online registration. At Tech Kids Unlimited, we have a very high teacher to student ratio. So we have a tech teacher in the front of the room who teaches a range of different topics. You can see one of our schedules here on this slide. We teach, throughout the summer, we taught 3D printing, game design, Minecraft. We had a partnership with the New York Transit Museum where the younger students made web apps and the older students used Google Cardboard to create virtual reality projects. We did stop motion animation, digital storytelling, and web design. So we cover a lot of different topics, but one thing that we kind of always revert to when we're teaching these topics is what are the students' passions, what are their affinities. So if you've ever read Ron Suskind's Life Animated, he talks about what's known as an affinity, an intense passion. So we use students' passions to engage children with ASD and help them learn by integrating them into projects and activities. So for stop motion animation, which is something that I will go over today a little bit more in depth in the technical aspect, we like students to actually come in with their own little toys. Sometimes we'll print out we'll print out some things. Images of something that they like Pixar characters or Pikachu, something that they really are obsessed with and love dearly. And we find that when we do this, that there is a huge transformation in the willingness of these students to actually engage and focus. When you're teaching something like math or or a subject that they don't like reading, it sometimes can be very hard to get them to focus and be engaged. But as soon as you integrate something like trains, which they might be obsessed with, they kind of perk up and they want to do the work. So whatever we're teaching, we like to integrate that aspect into it. Like I said, we have a very high teacher-to-student ratio in all of our classrooms at Tech Kids Unlimited. Obviously, students with special needs and autism spectrum disorder need a lot more support than a neurotypical student. The students that we see are very eager to be in the classroom, but they do need that extra support. So we provide them with lollipops and sensory fidgets, and sometimes we'll even take them out of the room. We have a social worker in all of our classes, so the social worker's job is to kind of reassure them and help them focus, and a lot of times they'll bring them out of the room to find a quiet area. We provide on the board always a visual schedule, and we give them a lot of breaks. One thing that a lot of teachers and paraprofessionals or people that deal with special needs need to know, and probably already know in some capacity, is that technology can be very frustrating. So if you've ever tried to integrate technology before, you've probably already realized this. But it can be incredibly frustrating because if you try to save something and you lose your project, or something doesn't work the way that you think it might work, you kind of just want to give up. And we see sometimes there's tantrums, there's a lot of breakdowns, there's frustration. But at the end of the day, the kids push through because, again, they're doing something that they love and that they believe in. We believe that teaching technology to these kids will give them the opportunity to become digital producers. A lot of them, as many of you know who are already working with kids with ASD and other learning and emotional disabilities, a lot of them are on their phones a lot because it's easier than the real world. They can edit themselves, they can think before they speak, whereas there's a lot of uncertainty in the real world. So a lot of them are always on their phones, they're always on the computer. But how do we turn them into actually producing things rather than just playing a game on their iPhone? What if we actually have them make a game on their with their phone, or make a video, or make a film? That's something that we want to do and try to employ these kids. By 2020, 1 million tech jobs will go unfulfilled, and less than 10% of New York City public schools offer any form of computer science education, and only 1% receive it. So, this is a staggering statistic. The tech field there's a huge gap in the tech field, and we certainly believe that we can fill that gap by teaching these kids real technology skills and having them go into a job that they love so that they can live a meaningful life. Um, as we know, a lot of these kids already are good with technology. They communicate with technology, whereas they might have trouble in the real world. So we really just have to think about how we can start employing them. At Tech Kids Unlimited, we recently started our teen program, which is for 14 to 19-year-olds. It's called Tech Teen Team, and we have tried to get our students to start working for real clients. So right now we have a real client, for example, who wants their website redone, and we're teaching the students how to start creating, how to start building a website. And they're actually working on a real life website for the client. The client's then going to pay them $25 gift cards. And it's a rewarding thing for them because they will gain real life work experience, which is something that a lot of them aren't learning in school. This is an example of one of our clients, the FAR Fund's old website. It was, you can see, it's very minimal. It wasn't nicely designed at all. So the FAR Fund came to us, and we decided to create their website for them, to redesign the website for them, and our students did that, and now it's much nicer, more robust. So we're very proud of that, and we continue to do that. So that's all of the background I'd like to talk about, with our organization, and hopefully it'll inspire you in your own classrooms on how important technology is to these kids, and how we can push them forward into employment and beyond with technology skills. I'm going to go over also the technical aspects of the curriculum that we're discussing today, which is stop motion and audio. So for those who don't know what stop motion is at all, I'm going to explain it briefly. So stop motion animation, which is also called stop frame animation, is animation that is captured one frame at a time with physical objects that are moved between frames. When you play back the sequence of images rapidly, it creates the illusion of movement. So there's a lot of examples of this, popular movies, that if you were to bring this into your classroom, maybe you can show your kids before you get started, and or maybe they've already seen some of these films and can get excited about it. Um, there's movies such as Wallace and Gromit, The Nightmare Before Christmas, Fantastic Mr. Fox. So whenever we teach stop motion, it could be a hard concept to grasp for them, for the students. So we like to show them examples beforehand. One short example of a stop motion animation film can be seen on a YouTube page, which is called PESFilm.com, PES film. And I will send anyone who's interested after this webinar, I can send you the curriculum of everything I'm going to be talking about, along with the links and resources of anything I mention along the way. So when we're making a stop motion film, one skill that we like to work on with the students is storytelling. So whenever we make a stop motion film, it's important for the students to plan out what they're going to be making. We like to describe films as narrative or experimental. Narrative are stories with a beginning, middle, end, a typical story, and they take a long time to write a script out for. And experimental films are more abstract and visual. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show an example of one of the stop motion films that one of our students made last summer. It took a week for this student to make this film, and he worked on it endlessly. We had our workshop from 10 to 4, and he was working throughout the entire time, even during breaks, to finish the film. And I think it's a real example of how we can take a student who normally may not be engaged, and because he was so into the project, he was able to focus so great. So I'm just going to show that right now. So that was an example of a film that one of our students made. As you can see, it turned out great, and we're really proud of that student for how well they did. So I'm going to go over now how we can go about creating a film such as that. When we do stop motion animation, we use a particular set of software. We like to use all of our classes have Mac computers, so we use Photo Booth to take the pictures. As I said before, with stop motion animation, you have to take a picture one by one. So each frame is a picture, and when you go to the next frame or the next picture, you have to move the object. Or if you're drawing, you have to kind of draw in the next frame, whatever you want the next frame to be. So it's a very slow process. And we find with Photo Booth it works really well because there's a timer in Photo Booth. It gives you 3 seconds before the picture takes. But you can use any kind of camera. If you don't have a Mac computer, you can buy webcams for your classroom or your PC. If you don't want to buy webcam computers, you can even use just a regular camera or your phone. There's also software that makes it really easy to do stop motion animation. There's iStopMotion, which is a software that we used in the past. But we do like to teach the kids industry standard software. So even though iStop animation is very easy and something that you can use with your younger students or students that have very little technology skills, it's great to use things like iMovie and Adobe Premiere to actually edit the films. So after you take photos with Photo Booth, and that's, again, taking a picture, moving the object, taking another picture, moving the object, and so on and so forth, you can start bringing those into either iMovie or Adobe Premiere. And both are pretty simple if you're just doing stop motion animation. They can be a little bit more complicated and robust if you want to start doing more with it, like effects and things like that. But if you're just working on working on stop motion animation, all you really have to do is drag photos into the software and add sound and titles. So that's pretty simple. I'm going to go into briefly how to do that with iMovie right now. So with iMovie, it's pretty simple to bring in your photos. So with my movie that I have here on iMovie, all I did was dragged the photos from Photo Booth. You can take the pictures in Photo Booth and then just drag right into the library here on the top left corner where it says Project, My First Project. As you can see, I have photos that are sequential, and I have my headphones that I took a picture of just moving along. And in order to make the frames very short so that it gives the illusion of movement, all I have to do is double click on them and change the duration. So normally when you drag it in, it'll say the duration will be 1 second. So I changed it to 0.5 seconds, and you can just check applies to all stills. And that's really all you have to do. When you play this back, it will give the illusion of movement. And then all you have to do at the after that is share, and you can export with using QuickTime, and this will create a .mov file, which you can use on any type of computer. iMovie is a very simple software, so I'm not going to go too much into it. There are tons of tutorials on YouTube that you can view more in depth if you'd like. But it's very intuitive, and I think it's something that is definitely easy to use. And if you have a Mac computer, it should be already on your computer, so it's not something that you need to download. For PC users, there are different softwares that you can use. There's definitely online software as well. But again, Adobe Premiere is what we like to use because it's industry standard software. And when we're teaching our kids something, when we're teaching our kids these important skills, we want them to be ready for the workforce, and therefore we want to teach them what they will be using in their real jobs. So I'm going to go into Adobe Premiere with that said, and show you a little bit more in depth of how to work on your stop motion animation project. So Adobe Premiere has a lot of buttons, a lot of things to be seen. When you create a project in Adobe Premiere, all you have to do is open the Adobe Premiere window and go to File, New, Project. I have my project here all ready to go, and the sequential photos that I had discussed earlier, which I took in Photo Booth on my Mac. on the left-hand corner is where all your files will be. And to get my photos there, again, all I had to do was drag and drop. The With any kind of program like this, a lot of it is really just dragging and dropping all of your little clips, and then editing them down afterward. So I have all of my photos, and then I'm just going to select all of them. To select, I just clicked on one of them, held down the Shift key, and then just drag that in. Again, just as easy as dragging that into my timeline here. If I play this for you, you'll see it's extremely slow. So every frame is 5 seconds. And only when I'm scrubbing through right now can you even see that anything is moving. So in order to fix that, I have to select all of these frames. I'm going to right click, or on the Mac it's control click, go to speed duration and change the duration. So with stop motion animation, you want to keep each frame definitely at a max 1 second, but depending on how fast you want your movement to be, but usually less than that. And then with Adobe Premiere, you have to click Ripple Edit Shifting Trailing Clips, or else there'll be space in between each frame. So when I do that, and then I just press play, oh, whoops. It will give the illusion of movement. So you can see it looks like it's moving, which is pretty cool. Also with Adobe Premiere and in making a film in general, in order to bring a film to life, you really have to add music and sound effects, and that'll really do the job of bringing a film to life. As you can see, as you saw with the film that I showed earlier of one of our students, James, he downloaded a sound, a music sound off of YouTube, which you can do, and he added it to the project. So I have a sound that I have downloaded here, and again, I just dragged it and dropped it into this media library, and now I can drag it onto my timeline underneath the frames. And if I were to play that back for you, you could hear the sound coming in. As you can see, the sound is bigger. Let me just zoom in a little bit. The sound is bigger than, is longer, sorry, than the amount of frames that I have. So if I just go to the end, this little red arrow pops up, and I can make that shorter to be the exact length of my stop motion animation film. If I wanted to go to, if I wanted to add titles, all I had to do is go to Title, New Title, Default Still, and then I can create a title. So my first movie. And then I can actually make these smaller. I can make this smaller. I can move it around. So on the top left-hand corner is the arrow where I can move it around. I can change the color. Whatever you'd like. The background is automatically transparent, so the background is not the frame that I have here. It's actually would be a black background automatically, and then you can put that wherever you want. So if I put that after my stop motion film, it'll be black, and if I put it right on top of it, it'll show right on top with a transparent background. So it's actually all pretty simple. It's just a matter of putting things together and dragging and dropping, cutting things down in order to make the film. The real hard part of stop motion animation is not in the editing so much as it is in the planning of the stop motion animation film and the actual taking of pictures. And again, having the affinities, which I've mentioned before, that is really a driving force and in getting these kids to focus on such a hard, long process. We've had kids make films with all kinds of things that they bring in, like Legos and action figures of trains and things like that, and that really gets them going. With Adobe Premiere, once I finish my film, all I have to do is go to File, Export Media, and all of the defaults on here are totally fine. This can be a little bit daunting with Adobe Premiere. There's so much information and so many options for everything because it is such a robust program. But the defaults for Adobe Premiere are always fine, especially when you're making a student film. It's not like you have to have a certain quality of film or a certain format. So the defaults are definitely fine, and you don't have to change anything here. You can just change the output name, and you can save it to wherever you'd like. And I'm just going to save it to my folder here, and I'm going to call it my first film. Save, and I can export it here. I'm not going to export it right now because I want to get into the next topic, but you can just press export and it will make a copy, a .mov file of that movie. So that's all for Adobe Premiere. Again, I will give you all the resources page for this so that you can go more into it. It also has a lot more information about iMovie, which I didn't go too much into. And really, stop motion is such a fun, such an interesting way to get your kids making narrative films and making experimental films and being really creative while also learning technology. So now I'm gonna go into a little bit more on audio. So I briefly discussed that our kids downloaded sounds from YouTube.com, and there's a lot of converters out there to do something like that. You can go to YouTube. You can Google how to download YouTube to MP3. We usually use a website called keepvid.com, keepvid.com, and all you have to do is copy the URL and paste it. So if I were to copy a URL, that's the thing at the top where it says www. This right here is what's called a URL, and I can just copy that. In the case of downloading a YouTube video, it would be www.youtube.com/ and then there's like a bunch of letters and numbers, and that's what you would copy and paste into whatever converter website you're using. We like to use keepvid.com. Like I stated, and you would just paste the URL here and download it. And the reason why I'm going more into audio is because I'd like to discuss now podcasting, which is very different from stop motion animation, but we actually, a lot of the technology is kind of the same. So with podcasting, we like to use Audacity, which is a free program. It's a very easy program to learn, and it's something that you can download on any computer, which makes it really great and really simple to use. So I discussed what stop motion is, but I haven't discussed what podcasting is. And podcasting, if you probably have heard about some popular podcasts before, there is NPR has a lot of podcasts. The Serial podcast became a huge phenomena. It really is just a type of radio show that can be downloaded. So if you ever go on your iPhone, and you'll see actually a whole app that is dedicated to podcasting, and there's tons of different types of podcasts. There's popular podcasts of of comedians who interview other comedians. There's podcasts that are about different topics like movies and pop culture, all kinds of things. So really, the fact that there are so many categories of podcasts, so many different types of topics, you can guess why we love to teach podcasting, because the kids can kind of stamp whatever they like onto the project. So if they like trains, they can do a whole podcast on trains. If they like Pixar, they can do a whole podcast on Pixar. And it really is a great tool to allow them to kind of, again, take their passion um, and create something instead of, again, being a consumer of a podcast that they may like we had a student who loved Doctor Who podcasts. They can start creating their own podcasts about things that they like and things that they're interested in. And the exciting part is that you can easily upload your podcast either to a YouTube channel, or we even have our own podcasts of all the students that we easily uploaded to iTunes, which you can listen to on our website at techkidsunlimited.org in the student work section. And the kids get really excited about the fact that students are actually, their peers and other students are actually listening to what they have to say. So with podcasts, we like to use this program, Audacity. Again, very simple, very easy. I have a sound that I just downloaded here from freesound.org. I love using freesound.org because freesound.org is just a huge library of different sound effects, little clips of music, all kinds of things. And if you ever listen to a podcast before, you'll notice that it's not just people talking and that's it. A lot of times there are sound effects. They will have, like for example, in Serial, Sarah Koenig would take little sound bites of, a car starting or a phone ringing, things like that. And that really, again, brings the podcast to life. So because the kids may not be able to go out in the street and take sound bites of things, I love using freesound.org to get the kids to download these sound effects and things like that. So they can, if they're making a podcast about trains, they can download from freesound.org a train sound or something like that. So with Audacity, as you can see here, it's a pretty simple interface. All I did to have this sound wave here is I just dragged and dropped it right into the project. You can also go to File, Import Audio, and you can import any type of audio file that you'd like. Usually MP3s or .aiff works best. With Audacity, you can also record, which is really the reason why we love it and we use it. As you can see on the top left corner here, there's a pause button, a play button, a stop button, a skip to start button, and then a fast forward skip to end button, and then a record button right here. So the record button, which is the red circular button, is all you have to press in order to start recording. If you have high-tech microphones, you can also very easily just plug it in. I have a Yeti microphone, which is what I like to use when we're teaching podcasting in the summer workshops that we have. They're pretty, even though they're very high quality, it's a pretty inexpensive microphone. So if podcasts were something that you wanted to bring into the classroom or work with your child on, you can definitely look into buying a microphone like that. And it's kind of exciting to talk into a microphone too, as opposed to just talking at a computer and using the computer's built-in microphone. So as you can see here, I have the built-in output and built-in microphone. But if I had plugged in my Yeti microphone to my computer, there would be another option here that would say Yeti microphone, and then I can just press record and the sound would be much clearer for that. So I'm going to also just go over a few of the things in Audacity that you'd need to know in order to start editing. So if I were to edit, to have more than one sound bite, there would be multiple sound bites underneath this one. And you can either, you can mute one or the other quite easily. You can change the gain here on the left hand corner, and that just means that you can make it louder or softer. In order to start clipping your sound bites, like if you were talking for too long, or there was a sound that happened, you could easily just delete anything that you don't want in the podcast. So if there's a clip here that I don't like, I can just select it by just clicking and dragging, and then just pressing delete on my keyboard. If I see all this empty space of no sound that I don't want in my podcast, I can easily delete that again. So those are just basic things that you can do. Cutting is definitely going to be something that you'll use the most. There's not much else that you would be using within Audacity to edit down. Mostly just that. But there are a lot of effects which could be really cool in terms of using Audacity. So there's a lot of effects that you can kind of play around with. Sometimes I don't remember what a certain effect does, but playing around with this kind of program is really what gets you familiarized with it, and it's fun to do for the kids too. So there was a student that we had over the summer who actually made a stop motion film, and he was the only one to use narration over his stop motion film, but he wanted to change his voice throughout the film because he wanted to kind of play different characters in the film. So he, just played around with these effects here, and he had in certain clips, he sounded like an alien with a very high-pitched voice. He sounded in other parts of the film like a robot. So if you just play around with all of these, you'll find whatever works in the context of your podcast or a film narration, whatever you're doing with this, and it's quite fun and easy to do. But you don't want to use your effects too much, of course, because it could start being very hard to understand what someone is talking about. So you definitely want to be careful with that. If you want to make sounds, some audio clips may be louder than others and might include some unwanted background noise. So you can use the compressor tool in the effects to make the loud parts quieter. So that's a very good tool to use. A lot of times there'll be pops of loud sound that can get in the way of your podcast and make it very, very hard to listen to. So the compressor effect is really quite good to use. And whenever you're talking to your kids about what a podcast is, And if you want them to listen to podcasts themselves before they go into it, you might want to go to npr.org/podcasts. You can go to audiobooks to listen to different audiobooks as well. And in the page that you can get from me with all the resources, I also go over how to submit your podcast to iTunes. Like I had said before, we submitted our podcast that the students made to iTunes, and now you can actually listen to it on iTunes, which is pretty great. So I'm going to go over also how to export very quickly. So in order to export this audio file, which in the case of creating a podcast, it would have a lot more clips and things like that. If I wanted to just export one clip over the other, I could mute one. As you can see, when I press mute, it goes gray. That means it won't be in my export. I can unmute it. If I go to left or right, that means like if you're wearing a headphones, that the sound would come only in the left or only in the right. And after I do all of that and I'm happy with everything, I can just go to File, Export Audio. If I want to do only selected audio, if I wanted to just do this selection, I could do selected audio. But if I want to export my entire project, I could just go to Export Audio. And I can do, there's different file formats that I can use. So with these different file formats, it's actually a little bit more important to know what some of these file formats mean, as opposed to the Adobe Premiere where the default was fine. So with AIFF files, that's usually the best thing to use because it works on all kinds of platforms, and it's also best when you're playing it in iTunes. So WAV files don't play in iTunes necessarily, so that's why AIFF files are the best thing to use. MP3 files are definitely also the best thing to use, but with Audacity, it might not be able to export that in that format, depending on your computer and the version you have, etc. So when in doubt, do AIFF, otherwise MP3. This is another great thing that Audacity allows you to do. It allows you to put the artist name, track title, album title, track number, year, genre, and any comments you have. So if you can give the student whatever, you can put their name in here. If they wanted to have kind of a pen name or like a fake name as a professional podcaster, that's also kind of fun. There's a lot of podcasters that have a title for their show. Like there's Pete Holmes, who is a famous comedian, who his podcast is called You Made It Weird. So if I wanted to put that as my title, I could put You Made It Weird as the artist name, and then I can do the track title as whatever my podcast subject is on. If I was doing a podcast on trains, that could be the track title. Anyway, you can, have fun with that and export it. And that's all you have to do. So again, if MP3s are hard to do because of this notice that you get, it needs this file that you need to download. So that's why I like to avoid MP3 when I'm using Audacity. And like I said, when in doubt, do .aiff files. So if I do that, and then you can just export it. I can't export now because I didn't pick the right place to export it to, but that's all you'd have to do in order to export using Audacity. It's quite simple. And the only thing that you really need to know is how to cut, how to add effects, and really that, and how to connect your microphone, which is all the things that I went over today. Um, so I'm going to um, go into the chat box and um, and see that if you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask any questions um, right now. And I'm happy to answer them. And again, I will go and send over the files of the curriculum that I went over today as well. So thank you all for joining us. I hope that we were able to kind of show a little bit more the kind of software that we like to use at Tech Kids Unlimited and how simple it actually is. There's tons of tutorials on YouTube that go a lot more in depth with this. But it would really depend on what you'd like to do. So for our basic recording of a podcast, there's really not much else other than recording and exporting with stop motion animation. It's really not much else other than taking the photos, dragging them into Adobe Premiere or iMovie, changing the duration of them to make them faster, adding titles, and then exporting. But if there's specific things that you wanted to do, like if there's a specific effect that you wanted to add to a stop motion film, or there's something that is in Audacity that you absolutely can't figure out, there's tons of YouTube tutorials, and these are programs that are used by so many professionals in the technology world and students and things like that. So they they have tutorials on absolutely everything that there is to know. And we're happy to introduce these great softwares to you so that you can bring them to your kids and your students and things like that. Yeah, so someone in the chat asked about when they would get the slides and things like that. And again, I will just email that all to everyone who signed up. If you signed up through our website, then we have all of your information. So I'm happy to do that. Please let me know if anybody has any other questions at all. Otherwise, we'll end soon. Thank you, Rena, for joining us. Lara, Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining us. Please let me know if you have any other questions. Thank you, Center for Supported Employment. Thank you for joining us. I'm glad it was helpful for you and informative. Okay, so I'm just going to end it now then, since I don't see any other questions. Please feel free to email me at christina@techkidsunlimited.org. You should have my email because I had emailed everyone about this webinar. Someone just asked, will it be on YouTube? Yes, it will be on YouTube. It will save automatically on YouTube. Luckily with YouTube Live, it just does automatically. So you can go to this exact link and it will be saved here. Great, I'm so glad that people, that we're getting positive feedback on it. It will post on YouTube automatically as soon as I finish with the live stream, so you can view it right after. With Audacity, you can just do a Google search for Audacity and download it. They have it downloadable for Mac computers, PCs, and it's completely free, which is why we love it. We would love to use it. Yes, so please email me, Christina at techkidsunlimited.org. Beth Rosenberg, who's also in the chat, you can feel free to email her at bbethr@gmail.com or beth at techkidsunlimited.org. And if you have any students at all in the New York City area that would like to join us for any of our classes, they can go to techkidsunlimited.org/register. Please also keep up with us on Facebook, facebook.com/techkidsunlimited, instagram.com/techkidsunlimited, or twitter.com/techkidsu. We love to post all kinds of things about special needs, autism, and technology. So, we're happy to communicate with everyone. Somebody asked, I don't remember if you mentioned for a PC what program we can use for stop motion animation. We don't use PCs, so we don't really have good recommendations for PCs. But there is Movie Maker. There is there's different, I forgot what the name is called. Movie Maker, I think Windows Movie Maker, that's the name. That's something that you can use instead of iMovie or Adobe Premiere. But Adobe Premiere can be used on PCs. It's just something that is not free, unfortunately, but you can do a free trial of it. Adobe Premiere is also something that you can pay monthly for. So Adobe released something called the Creative Cloud, where you can pay each month around $10, I think, for educators, and then you have access to all of the Adobe Creative Suite, which is great. So that includes Photoshop and Adobe Premiere, Adobe InDesign, everything. Okay, great. So thank you all so much. I'm going to keep answering questions in the chat if anyone wants to hang out. This was supposed to go a little bit longer, so if anyone has questions in the chat, I'll be keeping up with the chat, and I'm going to end the live stream now. Again, thank you all so much for coming, and this will be available right here at this page on youtube.com. Thank you all.